So getting into this profession, I always had like this drive or desire to want to help people. I actually started off when I was in school in nursing, and then learned pretty quickly that that is just not for me. Wiping bottoms, caring for people, and the physical aspect was just not my forte. And so I remember it was my sophomore year in undergrad that I actually took a course in Psych 101 and fell in love with it. I just love the learning of the mind and how it works, and how our own mental processes can just affect us, even physically, emotionally, spiritually, and just understanding or coming to terms with how much that influences our overall well-being kind of got me going on this ball of, or going on this role of what it is that I want to pursue. So I immediately, I think, well, I won't say immediately, but I think maybe a couple of weeks later, I actually got online, was like, so what can I do with a psychology degree? And just start looking up things. So I saw that you can be a clinical psychologist, that you can be a master level therapist. So I actually wanted to go the doctoral route, because I wanted to have my own practice eventually. And then it wasn't until after I graduated and started working and getting into my master's that I learned that that wasn't the case, that I didn't necessarily have to have a doctoral degree in order to get into a private practice. And so still want to get my doctorate sometime in the future, but I just decided that, you know what, why take another test? Why get more in debt than I already am, when I can do what I originally wanted to do, and that was just to help people. And so that's typically how it got all started. I forewent that, decided to get my associate's license in counseling, and did my residency, as you would say. Did 3,000 hours with that, and then ended up not too long ago. I think it was just like 2 weeks ago. I actually got my LPC to do licensed therapy. But yep, so that's pretty much how it started. So well, in my last year of undergrad, I actually work in direct care at a community mental health facility down in Tuscaloosa. And direct care is like the bottom of the barrel. So I would go into these group homes, and I would work the day shift sometimes, where I would literally get in this, I would say, 10, 12 passenger van and drive these individuals to either their doctor's appointments. Some of them went to day treatment. Some of them would go to church, or they would have some kind of job interview, but I would take them all to where they were needing to go. And then I would pick them up. And then later on that afternoon, I would either do the individuals who didn't have anything going on that day, I would do basic living skills group with them. So I would literally teach them how to manage our budget. I would teach them the importance of like bathing, and just pretty much keep them, teach them how to be individuals. Because a lot of those folks that were in the direct care facilities never didn't necessarily learn those skills, or they had been in some kind of institutionalized living situation. Stuff in Mobile, and I know in pretty much all in Alabama, most of your facilities like that got shut down, so they moved them all into group homes. And so that was the majority of my job, or the basis of my job, was just teaching them to take care of themselves, and all at the same time, actually taking care of them. So that's what I did. I did direct care until I graduated. After I graduated, I did case management. And so case management is where, kind of the similar idea, I would travel to people's homes, and I would make sure that they were taking their medication. If they need any kind of community resources or referrals, I would help them with that. And that was their deal. My family worried, because I would travel to some of these places where had dirt roads. And at the time, I had like a little 1999 Honda Civic car that would constantly break down on me. But with God's grace and help, I got through that, and no issues happened. Because you hear horror stories now when you go to like conferences and just different meetings with counselors in the mental health field, how like case management job is like really dangerous, because you never know what the mental state of a person is when you arrive to their home, especially individuals with my caseload consisted mostly of people who had severe mental illnesses. So you're looking at schizophrenia, you're looking at bipolar spectrum disorder, your major major depressive disorder. And so a lot of these individuals you did not know. I remember the craziest incident that happened to me when I was on the job was one of the men that I had did not take his schizophrenia medication, and he literally thought that he was in the war and that I was one of the nurses coming to help him. And so it took me a minute to understand what he was talking about, because he was like, "Are you here to help me? Are you here?" And I was like, "Yeah, you know who I am. Like, are you okay?" He just seemed off, but it was so rewarding after the fact, because I got on the phone, called my manager, my boss at the time, and I was like, "Look, something not right with this." So she came on the scene, and so we actually transported him, and he got stabilized. But it's the idea that he could have thought I was enemy. You're in war. I was like, hold on now, wait a minute, what's going on? But I started off with that. Then after that, my husband, he got a job. He finished school, and we moved down to we lived in Satsuma for a while. I decided to go back to school and get my master's, and that was an ordeal because I tried to find jobs, I tried to find work, but it's a psychology degree, a bachelor's level psychology degree. It's kind of like one of those, I wouldn't say useless degrees, but if you don't know what you're going to do with it, it's like getting a degree in English. Unless you're going to be a teacher, there's nothing, or a writer, but you have to have that goal set. And so my husband is phenomenal, amazing person. He helped me through everything. He was just like, "Look, you concentrate on this. I got this," because he's an engineer. He was like, nursing, engineer. I mean, those types of professions, they're always going to have a lot of work. So he was like, "Look, I got you. I'll hold the fort down financially. You just focus on this. And then when you get settled down, I can retire and be a stay-at-home dad with the pups." And I was like, "Good deal." So got my master's. Once I did that, it still was a struggle because I couldn't even, it was like, because now you have to get the work experience. Now you have to get your licensure. I remember working at methadone clinics. So I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, drive 30 minutes to work. But I mean, it was great. I get off at 1:30, but then I would still have to do the clinical supervision. So I had to meet with my clinical supervisor. I have to keep tabs of all my hours. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that that's over with, because I had so many Excel spreadsheets of like logs after logs of just hours. And just kind of keeping up with, maintaining your educational level, because there's all kinds of things out there. There's not things, but just new information of how to help people out there. So making sure I stay on top of the newest techniques, making sure that I could save up and afford to go to that conference where they taught you some of this stuff, and just knowing what it is I wanted to put my focus into. But eventually I quit one of the methadone clinics. I worked at 2 separate facilities for a while. I quit one, and then I started my practice. And so when I first started Practical Choices in Healthy Change, it was in this building, but it was in it was like a 10 by 10 closet. Like, it was the smallest little room. Only me and one individual can fit in the room. But it was amazing, because I was like, no one's going to, after, how like you start self-doubting, like, who's going to want to see me in this tiny little room with this one little laptop? And just like a bunch of, like, all my books and stuff I still had. I had it stuffed underneath tables and desks and stuff, but who's going to want to see me? Because it's not a comfortable environment. But a lot of the people who did see me or continually kept coming to see me was just like telling me, "Miss Jo, it's not this I come see you for, it's your wisdom that I come see you for." And by far you're one of the, either, if all therapists are like this, they felt more encouraged to support the field, or if they've had therapy before, I changed their mind about how much it could help an individual if you actually work the program the way you're supposed to, or do what the facilitator or the therapist tells you to do, and kind of work it in a way that makes sure that you get the maximum benefit out of it. So that is one of the things that I've tried to do, is make sure that when my people come to see me, is one of the things that are the philosophies that I do is it's not just me. I am not a miracle worker. I can't just snap my fingers and make everything better. But collectively over time, if you take the information that we discuss in this 1 hour session and apply it outside, maybe something different can happen in your life. Maybe something of change and worth, or even if it's just a different outlook on it, if it's just a different perspective, maybe that in itself can make you feel better about your situation. And so usually the people who do coming back that I give a rating scale at the end of each of my sessions. I take that back. One person gave me a bad rating, but everyone else gave me a really good rating. I don't get nothing but 9s or 10s pretty much. So
that's awesome. So basically you're saying that the road to doing what you know you wanted to do wasn't super easy. You had to pay the price along the way to get to this point.
Yes, definitely I had to. It was times where I didn't want to get up in the morning because I'm waking up 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, most people, only people I know that's up that morning is nurses, truck drivers, and methadone therapists. It's like no one's out on the road, and I had to make sacrifices too, because sometimes when I get home, I've been up all day, and you don't really want to do anything when you get home. But I have a family too, and so it's trying to find that fine line of like, okay, what am I going to allocate? What kind of energy am I going to put forth into my clients, and how much am I going to reserve for my family? It's knowing when to take breaks. It's like saying, okay, you know what, Joe? Fam, we need to come to Jesus meeting. We need a vacation. We need to find some way where we're not so consumed, where we're actually enjoying life. You work and you work and you work. But where you have to find that fine line or division where you say, okay, I made this money, let's spend this money. Either we're going to spend it on some kind of toy, device, or a vacation, something where you can have a little bit of outlook where you're like, okay, it was worth it. This is the reason why I get up in the morning type thing. So I started this business, Practical Choices in Healthy Change Therapy, in January 2017. The services that I offer are I provide counseling or therapy for psychotherapeutic interventions for anger management, conflict resolution, stress management, time management. I see a lot of my individuals come to me with complaints about depression or anxiety. I do marriage and couples counseling and just relationship counseling in general. Not so much in the family stuff, but definitely romantic couples. And I also do clinical hypnotherapy. And I feel like I'm missing one. Oh, and my background is in substance abuse. So I will do assessments to place people into different other places with that, but I don't do a lot of substance abuse treatment here, though. So this building, the RSA Tower, the reason why I chose it is because it's pretty iconic. I mean, you can't miss it. It's on every, landscape photo of the downtown Mobile area. You can see it. It's just like, I usually tell people when they call me, it's the biggest building downtown. I'm in that building. And I love the location because you have the water you can't see it here, but there's a window outside that views the Bay Area and some portions of the buildings, and you can see the bridge out in the distance. But I feel safe here. I have security downstairs. It's very nice. It is. It's comforting to know that I have people here 24/7. I'm not alone. And that if I ever need anybody or need something or another, that I can always find somebody, say, hey, help me here. This isn't working. Or what is it that I need to do? I know that it's also great is because I just want to brag on the security, because the people that come to see me, they have to have an appointment with me. They can't just come into my office and just, plop themselves down in my chair. What they really need to do is they go to the front desk, they get a security badge, they use that badge to get on the elevator. You can't get on the elevator unless you have the badge because the buttons don't work. And then they can come see me. Then they have a front lobby area where my front desk receptionist kind of takes them and takes their badge and tells them just to wait on me, and she gives me a call and tell me, hey, you have a client up here. So it makes it very streamlined, and it just makes it very convenient for people to come and see me. So I love the location. It's just a beautiful location. So I do have an Instagram page where I go on there and I put a picture out, and it has like a little quote of like a daily quote of, you know, love yourself, be inspired, or something of that nature. And then I would post it out, and people typically share it or like it, and they sometimes they'll give me feedback on how much they enjoyed, or how that one little thing has helped them. So that's one way that I market. I also have word of mouth. So a lot of my colleagues that I've met along the way have come into my life, and so luckily, I only, the clientele that I usually cater to, or that I do cater to, not usually, I do cater to, is adults. Anyone between the ages of 18 and 65 are usually the population or the cohort that I work with. But a lot of my colleagues I met along the way love kids. And I'm like, thank you, Jesus, because I love kids. Don't get me wrong, kids are great. But working with kids, I don't have the patience. I don't have that capacity to, if a child is hurting, to kind of turn that off. And so I love how when they get a parent and they're like, Joe, I'm referring you a parent. I'm like, good, because I got a kid that I know is going to need you. So that's what I get a lot of business from that. I get business as well as from just people that come in to see me. They're like, Miss Joe, would it be okay if I know I have a friend and she's struggling? And I'm like, girl, yes, I got some business cards. Go on, here's two. Get one, two, find two more people that you know that would love it. And so I get business that way as well. And then just your typical usual places that most therapists or psychologists or anybody in the mental health, they usually get a page from Psychology Today. And I'll get new people that way as well. They can just Google search it, or they can Google search my business too. There's a fun fact or interesting thing I learned the other day was one of my clients said that I usually ask them when they come in for their consult, so how did you find me? And they said, well, I just Googled African American therapist in Mobile. And so, and my business was the first to pop up, and I was like, okay. So I've been kind of checking in on that and see how that goes as well, because I know that there's not a lot of people of color in the area that's providing counseling. Which is even weirder is that there are no Black men or Hispanic men or Asian men at all in the Mobile, Baldwin County area giving counseling. So I just think it's great that, you know, they can Google me and find somebody that looks similar to them and be able to find me that way. So I love how the internet and social media has made it very easily accessed, where people can search their preferences and be able to find what it is that they're actually wanting to, the individual whom they want to work with. Okay, so technology in general has helped me in the fact that it has made scheduling for me amazing. So my clients can actually go onto my website. I have a link listed into my contacts portion of my website, and they can click on it and they can see my availability. They can see how I don't actually have to physically talk to them. A lot of them will call me and say, hey, Miss Joe, I just want to, get in contact with you. I was trying to I was trying to schedule an appointment with you, and, we will do it the old fashioned way. But a lot of times people have anxiety about talking to people on the phone or communicating with people. And so it has helped them because they can able just go on there, plug and chug. And, I'm here. I'm like, I'll usually email them back and say, hey, thank you for choosing me, and just give them a rundown of what to expect when they come in for that appointment. But a lot of them said that, hey, I probably wouldn't even schedule an appointment at all. I know I've been needing help, but the fact that you've made it very easy and convenient for me made it worth my while. And I was like, well, that's good to hear. Something I'll keep. So, another thing that I find very interesting is the fact that I have 2 contracts, or I'm working on getting 2 contracts with telehealth. So telehealth for me in general would be great, but for other people even better, because it allows people to sit in their homes and get counseling without having to actually leave the house. I'm working on getting 2 contracts now, which would be amazing if I do get them. But it just the value of it, the fact that some people live out in rural country, some people don't have transportation, some people don't even live in this in this county, or it'll take, if they wanted to, if they, for some reason or another, I got so big, somebody in Birmingham or Huntsville heard about me and they wanted to receive services from me personally, then we can do the telehealth thing and I can provide that with the care that they require. And it opens up so many business opportunities and so many avenues for, I just don't have to help my immediate community. I can also help other people. So it's caused me to like look into research and, okay, so I got my licensure here in Alabama. Where else can I get my licensure? So it creates more business opportunities for others because it just makes it convenient for the counselor to be able to help or reach out to more people. And I think that's great. Oh, we have a whole ethical pamphlet. It's about 5 or 6 pages long. It has like columns upon columns. Most of it is pretty common sense. You know, you're not going to hurt your client. You're not going to offend them. You want to maintain really good boundaries. But there are some in the daily day practices of counseling. There's sometimes become gray areas. And so an ethical concern would be that I try to typically deal with, I try to nip it in the bud when we first do our consultation, is learning or knowing those boundaries. Hey, I'm your counselor, I'm not your friend. Because some of the stuff that we talk about in therapy, it's personal. And so they relate to me or they see me as a friend sometimes. But it's like, okay, I think that's awesome that you want to invite me to your birthday party. But, you know, Or if you see me out in public, I usually tell them in consultation right then and there is, I'm not going to acknowledge you because I want to protect your privacy and confidentiality. Now, if you say, hey, I'm not going to be rude, I'm going to be like, hi, but I'm going to try to keep it as short and as sweet and as brief as possible. Because again, it's not that I don't want to talk to you or I don't want to be associated with you. It's a simple fact that what if somebody else in that room sees you with me, knows I'm a therapist, and then there you go. It's like, well, why is she talking to her over there? How does she know her? So I try to explain that to them and making sure, especially when Mobile and Baldwin County, it's not a small city, but it's pretty tiny. And so I can walk into Walmart or Target or food, any kind of grocery store, Rouse's, and I'm most likely, if I'm going to be out for at least 3 or 4 hours, I want to see at least one person I have talked with, conversed with, or had some kind of services with within that time frame. The longer I stay out, the more likelihood I'm going to run into somebody. So that is one of the things that I try to address. The only thing I could really think of is the fact that I'm the one that there's no other businesses out there that has me. There's no other, I can't speak for other people. I can only speak for Jo. And I know that Jo is going to make sure she does the best job she can possibly do. She's going to make sure she has a hand in everything she's going to do. And if it's going to be done, and it's going to have my name written on it or Practical Choices, it's going to be done to the best of my ability or whoever's working with ability. I'm not going to do shoddy work at all. Even if something's cheap, if like most of the furniture I have in here is probably bought from the Dollar Tree, but it's going to look good. I'm going to make sure because it reflects who I am, and I feel as if it's going to reflect. I don't want people to come in and feel, even as I grow, I want them to know that they're getting a good service. That even if it is like my fees aren't necessarily expensive or over the top. Most people in the area, they're probably going to charge around $130 an hour. I charge $50 an hour for my services. I make it real reasonable for people who are wanting to get the help, I don't do a sliding scale fee, but I try to work with people. So, if they are having a little problems here, I'm like, okay, so you do half here, half later type thing. But we try to find a way for us to make it work. A lot of times people, they try to make it, I'm a very reasonable, understanding person. I'm like, look, I don't care if I have a no-show cancellation fee, and I tell them, if you have something going on in your life happens. I get that. Just make sure you bring something. Bring me a receipt, a fix-a-flat receipt. I don't care what you bring in, because if you put in the effort to buy a fix-a-flat to say you had a flat tire, I'm like, you did some work. Okay, let's waive that fee, I'm like, it's okay. But I try to make it convenient for people, and I know what it feels like to need something and not be able to afford it. So I try to make that affordable for people, because one of the things I'm working on now is getting on some kind of insurance panel, which I just got my license. You can't get in a license panel without that. So that's gonna a work in the making, but I'm definitely gonna keep my fees as is up until then, and then once I get them, I might raise them, but I'll definitely keep a certain number of people. I have to work that out math wise, but that I'm gonna maintain that $50 a session fee for.
You know,
I've had mentors. One of them was my first. I had two clinical supervisors. One of them, she is who taught me most of my clinical skills. She taught me, Joe, you need to go to these classes. You need to stay up on top of stuff. You need to do this. You need to do that. Make sure if you're going to be doing something, make sure you're doing it right or correctly. And so she is who taught me that. And then my second mentor, my second clinical supervisor, she taught me business. She was just like how to keep people coming back, how to make sure that, you know, CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, is like the basis of what most counselors, the skill that most counselors practice. But she taught me ways to make it fun. Get some cards. I got all kinds of cards over here, all my stuff, of how to make it interesting for that person, how they can, you know, not necessarily do talk therapy. Okay, let's get some other things involved in there to get their imagination rolling, to get them outside the box a little bit better. Because there's only so much you can do as far as talking that eventually you're going to run into a brick wall. And so she taught me, get your bells and whistles going. Make sure that you have something to keep them interested in during your session. And then one of I talked to you about her earlier, Sandra Brown. She was the clinical director of my internship. She taught me, you know, find your voice, Joe, because when I talk a lot now, but when I was younger, a lot younger, I was the most quiet off, shut in person, didn't have a confidence backbone in my body, didn't believe in myself, didn't believe in what I was doing. I just didn't think I was good enough. And so she taught me to, you know what, it doesn't really matter if you're good enough. Just make sure that you are doing the best that you know that you can, and have confidence in that, not necessarily your skill, but in your work ethic. And so great. So I'm currently, as far as mentoring goes, I would love to in the future mentor somebody. Unfortunately, I have to wait 5 years to get a supervisional LPC, or licensed professional counselor supervisor, to get that done. But I do, in the meantime, I help my colleagues out. So a lot of them still have their ALCs or working towards getting their ALCs. And so I'm going to be their cheerleader. I'm going to be that first person that say, hey, I got a room for you if you need one up here in the RSA tower. They're pretty reasonable. If you talk to the right people, you might get a discount type thing. Or, you know, I'll write you that letter of recommendation. I'll give you a good word in. So I always want to be able to help. If you need some kind of tool, some kind of worksheet, I got a whole trunk full of stuff you can borrow, have. I don't care, make copies if you want to. You can use it all. I've been using it for years. I need to find something new anyway. It's whatever. But I don't believe in hoarding information. I've never been that type of person. I've always been the type of person, or I'm going to share. I'm going to say, hey, if I'm coming up, you're coming up with me, because if you're going to be the person I think you are in the future, then I want that on my side. I want you on my team. And so I want you to come along with me. We're going to rise to the occasion. So
don't quit.
if I were to give some young person some advice, I would say, know your purpose. Live life pursuing your purpose. Know what it is. It could be something really vague, because I started off personally, I just knew I wanted to help. And like I said, I started off in nursing and thought that was going to be it. But I just knew that I wanted to be a peacemaker. I wanted to be able to help people have that sense of it's going to be okay. And so if I were to give any kind of advice, is live life, know your strengths, embrace your weaknesses, and just live life pursuing and discovering your purpose. So.